So anyway, without further ado, take it away, Cochi.
Yeah, hi. How do I share my screen? I'm not familiar how to use
Okay, so
this.
there's a big green button that says share right in the middle.
Oh, right in the middle?
Right
Yeah,
in the
push it
bottom middle.
with the pointed
Oh,
arrow
the
up.
part.
Big button down
Copy.
there, Dad.
Yeah. Go help your old man there,
Oh,
If you
yeah,
Krishna.
I
move
got
your
it.
cursor down, it appears.
I got it. I got it. Got it. Here. Okay, sure. Can you guys see this?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got it.
Okay. So I figure I spoke about this earlier because this has to do with my experience when I was working in the bureau. So the first time I ran into this was in the bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993, and we were doing a search of the chemists that participated in the 1993 bombing, and he lived in Maplewood, New Jersey. And I was brand new at the time. I think I only had like a year in the bureau. No, I had 2 years in the bureau. And I was curious about the stuff that we found in the house and how it has evolved because terrorism has always been kind of like a mysterious uh, animal because before that, we didn't really know much about it. We knew about the German uh, the Red Army, about the Japanese at the at the Shining Path, and the different terrorist groups that we were dealing with. But then the 92 bombing happened, and then I was in charge of the search of the chemist's house, and we started going through all his papers as we were searching. And then I found letters of recommendations recommending people for different terrorist groups. I mean, it was kind of like a strange thing because I have never seen anything like that. And they would say, well, this is our brother, please accept them into the group. So they would look for bona fide. That means people who would vouch for that person. And it was something that was kind of interesting because it was more of a loose network and not it was more of a, word of mouth, and also at the time it was a letters of recommendations, and that's how they would join different groups and they get accepted. So in 9/11 it was something completely different because in 9/11 we saw the FBI and the United States came into the idea that they were the planning of the bombing and the way they were communicating. They weren't using straight words. They weren't talking about World Trade. They were not talking about the Pentagon or the White House. They were using keywords and they were using. So from what I heard, it was the guy who said a lot of the communications was someone who was actually went to our universities, and a lot of people that helped these terrorist groups were actually, some of them were educated by us, not by us the government, but by our universities, and they use our methodology. Such a long word for me. I always remember my last name is only 2 letters, so anything beyond two is a lot. But that's how we came around. So they use some of the tactics that spies use. They use death drops. So whenever the way they were using the email is that they were sending notes to each other, but they would never email. They would never send the email. They would save it in the draft folder, and then the other person will go back in and see what they will write, and that's how they communicated. So the email never left the server where it was being hosted, whatever email, a web-based email they were using. So it never went across the internet. So that's one of the things that we saw. So the email is basically being used as a dead drop. So it's the same methodology, and then you have the brush passes in which you have a predetermined place, and then you pass a note or something to each other as you're walking by. Covert communications, that means they have encrypted, or they use different languages. They will have chapters of the different books, and then the surveillance will be the other methodology they use. So they call the email that never got that was never sent. They call it foldering, where the email itself is never actually sent. It's always saved in the draft folder. And because it never went across, it can never be captured by any individual who may be monitoring email addresses. Because sometimes what happens is that you get an email address and you're monitoring, but because it never received or no emails were sent, then you don't see it going out. So it's sat there. You have disposable SIM cards. Now, many places you can travel, you can purchase a SIM card. Some places you have to attach a SIM card to a passport, but most places they don't. You have the dead drops that were used by the spies, and then you have email and a secure message. That's how they communicated during the 9/11. And social media chat rooms and gaming is also used because you need passwords, you need to be vetted, and that's how you get into the game rooms and chat rooms. And that's how they have been communicating, and also that's how they recruit people. You have the USB sticks that are encrypted, JPEGs and GIFs. So they have a steganography in which they send a picture, and in the picture there's a message, and they're hiding the message there. You have satellite phones and courier by hand. It's kind of funny because after 9/11, after the war started, a lot of things dropped using phones, and they dropped electronic communications. They started going by courier and by it had to be a person-to-person contact. Because of electronic surveillance, a lot of them just stopped using any electronics or anything that would emit a signal. Matter of fact, the guy who Osama bin Laden, they follow him for 3 years. They follow the courier. I believe I heard that it was for a few years before. Hello? Somebody's talking?
No, it's just that, yeah, somebody,
Okay.
we muted him. Go ahead.
Yeah. So they followed this courier that was taking messages to bin Laden for years until he finally went there. And it's something that you don't know if the information you have is accurate or not. So you stay with the person until he finally does. Because remember, especially when we were working spy cases, you watch somebody for 256 days before they did something, and you had to catch him in those 5 seconds that he did something. In those 256 days or in 365 or whenever he happened to do it, because this is not something they did every day. This is something they did very, very extremely rare. So but the thing is that when you are sitting on somebody and watching them, you only get a few seconds for you to catch him. And that's the difficulty of catching people who are passing messages. Two people on opposite sides of the globe may agree on 30 anonymous web-based email accounts, and they use the account only once, and then they drop it. One-time anonymous accounts are difficult to monitor because they go dead after they used it. Let me see, many emails are saying on public computers, they use public computers all the time. It's kind of funny because they do the same thing as regular criminals do. They go to a public computer, They rent a computer for an hour and then do what they need to do, and then they don't go back to it again. And that's very difficult to catch them whenever there's is electronics. Language in the email can be cloaked, and they can use, like in the 9/11, they use architecture for World Trade Center, arts for Pentagon, and law for Capitol, and politics for the White House. So the issue with communications is that it's very important for these terrorist organizations to be able to communicate, because their recruitment, their operational support, their financial support, their management is based on communications. If they are unable to communicate, they cannot operate, and that's how they also recruit and get support from different groups. It's kind of funny because if you think about it, a terrorist organization works like a regular business. They need money, they need structure. They also have kind of like an HR department, and you don't realize that that a terrorist group is not a bunch of guys who just got together for a Sunday party. They have an organization, a structure, a command, a financial sector, and all of this needs to come together for what the goals are. In the I don't know if you guys ever heard of the name Yuki Kikumura. Yuki Kikumura was a member of the Japanese Red Army. He was recruited by I think it was the PLO or one of those groups, I forgot the name, to come and put a bomb on 14th Street in Manhattan at a recruiting station. And he drove a car, he got a car and he drove, and he was assembling a bomb during his trip. And he was buying all his equipment in Radio Shack. Some of you guys are not old enough to remember Radio Shack. But then what happened is that when he was driving through New Jersey, he was almost, he was close to Manhattan now, and he needed to stop at a rest stop. So he drove around the rest stop looking for a spot because he had a bomb in the car, and he didn't want to park it where people could see it. So he drove around the rest stop until he found a spot far away from the entrance. So a trooper happened to look at him and see, why is this guy? Everybody's trying to park close to the entrance. This guy parked far away from the entrance and also away from all the vehicles. So he approached him and he say, "How are you? And what are you doing?" And the guy didn't speak much English, and he says, "Why did you park here? Do you have?" He thought that the guy was transporting drugs
Recording.
because that's what his job was. He was supposed to stop. He was doing interdiction for narcotics. And he asked the guy, "Do you mind if I look at your car?" And he said, "Sure." He said, "Yeah." So he looked in the car and he saw this fire extinguisher in the back of the car. And he said, "Okay, I got you." Because he figured that's where he had the drugs. So he turned around, he grabbed it. He says, "I got the drugs." So he grabbed it and he raised it above his head. He started shaking it to see if he could hear something inside. And as he's shaking, he realized there's wire sticking out through the hole of where the hose is. And he said that was the first time in his life that he had, how can I say, he froze. He said, that's when you realize that you're doing something stupid. He said, "I had never seen wire sticking out of a fire extinguisher." And that was what they call the pucker factor. So he turned around and he slowly put it down and started running from the car. But he said he ended call for backup, and it turned out it was a bomb. But the guy had not activated yet. The wires were not set yet, but he didn't know that. So he was on his way to put the bomb on 14th Street. And then when they searched him, they found him with all these receipts from Radio Shack and the motels where he had stayed. He kept an account of all the expenses that he did for the trip and for the job he was doing. And they asked him, why are you keeping all these receipts? He says, I had to submit it to get my money back. Because people don't realize terrorism is also a business. They're accountable for their expenses. It was the same thing in 93. In 93, when they came to put the first bomb on the World Trade Center, Bin Laden gave them a budget and he gave them the money. When they arrived here, they lost the money. And that's why they were supposed to do, I think, the bomb 2 years earlier, but they got delayed because they lost the money. And that's one of the things that fuels terrorism is money. Because without the money, they couldn't put the bomb. They ended up getting the money and the support through the different groups that they had here. And that's unfortunate, but it is the truth. We have people within the U.S. or that travel to the U.S. that supported them to assemble the bomb because they did not have the expertise. The guy who had the expertise, who was supposed to help them doing that, got arrested when he arrived in JFK, and he had all the bomb making material in drawings. And when the immigration inspector looked at this, he had like a notebook with drawings and stuff like that, and he started looking at the drawings. I said, "This look like how to assemble a bomb." So that's he was asking for asylum at the time. He got detained, and that's the reason why he got detained. So they lost their expert when he got detained in JFK. So you don't realize how it works, but that they need support and they need operations, and one of the biggest things for that is communications. The U.S. currently uses active and passive attacks to disrupt terrorism through electronic networks, using computer viruses to infect their computers and to look at the information in the computers and transfer data and watch traffic patterns. This is if you know there's a known terrorism network or somebody connected to it. They do use viruses, and it's kind of funny because we do it, they do it, and all the governments do it. I mean, when I was working, I saw China releasing viruses attacking their own computers because they were watching their own citizens. And the only reason why we saw it was we saw this, they had stood up a fake DNS server, and it was directing people to a malicious website that it was downloading an update that had a malicious package, and we downloaded the update, and then we ran the code, and we found out that it had spyware within the code. And these are some of the things that are happening now with not only with us or other people, is what we're seeing globally. So key figures within the terrorism network are vetted and recommended by association. The recommendations and vetting are conducted to verify the bona fide of the potential recruit. I spoke earlier about the letters of recommendation. They also look for skill set. So they need certain skill set to further their operations. If they're looking for somebody who's in electronics, somebody who's in computer, somebody in logistics, and somebody in communication. So they have the same goals. It's kind of funny, as many other businesses, except that the business is just to conduct terrorism, and that's something that many people don't realize, but it is the truth. Anyway, this is kind of like a loose presentation I wanted to give to all of you, because I know that you guys would normally never ever see anything like this in your regular life. I hope you guys have any questions, or I hope it was interesting for you guys to listen to this.
I think everybody loved it. That's for sure. If you look at the chat, Cochi, everybody's talking about it. Somebody had a question. Matthew, you want to ask your question? I know it was a while back.
Yeah, sure. Hello. What I was going to ask is, how can AI tools be used to help catch these people during those very small windows? Because you mentioned that you've got about 5 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever, to see it, but it's a very small window. Are AI tools now being implemented to help with that and monitor? That way we can catch it when it happens?
So yes, they are. As I understand it, they are implementing some of that, because you see what happens is that people don't realize that, and it's kind of funny because uh, let's say an insider threat in your company, this person is photocopying documents from your company, and he's staying late. You don't know when he does it, but he's taking documents, but you have no clue which are the documents. So some people, it's kind of funny. Some people suggest, because this is what happened to me many, many years ago when I was younger and more foolish, put a camera and you catch him. The problem is that when you put a camera, somebody has to watch the camera. And if you have it on auto record, that means that you have to have somebody to sit on the camera, on the tape for 8 hours or 10 hours. And then you have to catch that person for the, let's say, 2 minutes that he does it. So I think with these tools in AI, it's certainly going to help because you don't need a person to sit there. But by the same token, I don't know how AI will be, how effective AI will be, because at the end of the day, AI is based on the code that people write. That's the way I see it. They don't have independent thinking. They cannot figure out what a person is going to do the next 5 minutes from now. But they can catch somebody in the act of doing something when a certain event triggers it. That certainly they can do. But I know that is being used right now, but I don't know in which capacity or how they're using it.
All right,
Any other
Dami, you got a
question?
question? Dami, you're on mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, Cochi, thank you for the presentation. That was really cool. I'm just a little bit curious. You mentioned that during the communication, when they were sending emails, that the emails were never sent, so there was nothing to really track. How did they eventually communicate?
So they had saved in the draft folder. They all use the same password and user, and they just go back in and change the draft.
Okay.
So the new message, I would type a new message in the draft, in the email, but never send it. So the last person who types it deletes it.
Okay.
So is there a way that they've addressed this at all? Or, I mean, because that hasn't changed. I mean, it's not like they're putting tracking on drafts now. So I assume this is still a practice that's still being used.
Yeah, so from what I understand, and I figure that's what they're doing. So is the email never leaves, there's no data to capture.
That's right.
Because it never moved. So I don't know if there's any program right now where they can identify. So you cannot. So basically, in all honesty, you have the Fourth Amendment, which is the protection of your privacy. You cannot be searched only if you are overseas or you're not a U.S. citizen. They can search your data. But if you're in the US or it's a US company, they cannot do it and as far as I understand, they cannot do it legally without a FISA court order, which is a foreign intelligence court. I forgot the acronym, but you need to go to a classified court for that. But when you go to get the order, you have to have specifics. Like you have to know that this email is being used by this specific individual, and that this person is connected or associated with a terrorist group, and they're actually participating and planning something. If you don't have that, you're not going to be able to get a court order. And that's the way it is, because at the end of the day, you have privacy, and you have the Fourth Amendment right to your communications. It has been ruled by courts. Only a mere inference of anything doesn't mean that you can get access to people's emails and stuff like that. Because it's basically like a wiretap, like you're taping a conversation with somebody else. And that's the way the court, the FISA court works. The issue is that when you are the investigator, you are swearing by your knowledge and your experience that what you're saying is accurate. To be honest with you, I don't know what the requirements are, but I know that back then when I worked, if you did something and what you said was completely inaccurate, you're in big trouble. You could get fired or also prosecuted for saying something that is not accurate. At least, back when I worked, that was 12 years ago. But I don't know if it has changed somehow. But at the end of the day, in the 1990s, all the cases that we work in terrorism, we were very successful. The problem that our legal system is based on acts, so we act after it happened on the legal side. That's when after 9/11, the focus started shifting to try to intercept the act, but it's not easy, and it relies a lot on the different police agencies globally, not only the United States, England, Australia, New Zealand. We have what they call the Five Eyes, and they all cooperate with us, and we cooperate with a lot of countries because nobody wants to have a terrorism attack within their soil, and that's how it works. It doesn't matter what country you are, because when you put a bomb, it doesn't say kill only the people standing on this street. They just kill everybody who's standing there, and no country wants that. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I feel like I'm talking about something so serious. It was the previous presentation was lighter, but it's a reality of the world, and to be honest with you, all of you guys are in security, so we all share the same mindset, and
Yeah,
that's why I like IC2 Square. Yeah, IC2.
You are dealing with covert operations, so of course this is going to be a lot more serious than the last topic that we were discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is extremely interesting because, like you said, none of us really will ever see this kind of behavior.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it would be interesting to present it to you guys, because this is something that, some people may speak about it or they may write about it, but you really don't get to see it or listen to details about it.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Very
That's it.
cool. All right. Well,
All
thank you, Cochi. That was a fantastic presentation, as always. So thank you. A lot of people are asking me about the gun range again, though. When are we bringing that up again?
So that's an issue because
Thank you, Ken.
it turned out. I want to teach all of you guys how I wanted to do it, but the club stopped me because they say we thought
We weren't supposed to bring that
you-
many people into a range at once, so they
Right.
they
they
stopped
say
us.
am I running a catering hall or something there besides shooting?
Can we make
They
donations
all-
to the club? Can we make donations to their association?
Well,
To get more
I
people.
can pitch that. I'll do that. I'll do that later in the year. I just haven't had time. I'm so busy.
No, I know. Listen, vote for Cochi also.